Hilfield Friary is a mixed community made up of Franciscan friars of the First Order of the Society of St. Francis, which is an Anglican religious order, along with others who commit themselves to share in the life and work of the friary. There's about 20 of us in the community from all around the world and from a variety of backgrounds and of all ages. In fact, we have a community member in every decade of life from 0 up to 80. Our community life is centred around the chapel, which gives the rhythm and framework on which our life is built. Everything else we do is intended to be an expression of our Franciscan spirituality. In 2006, the brothers decided particularly to explore how this might work itself out in terms of the management of the land here. We started slowly building up our experience on the 25 acres of friary land, and then in 2016 we were unexpectedly able to acquire a further 25 acres. This was a bit of an ecological blank canvas, part of the Great Green Desert, having been farmed conventionally for many years. We've been thinking and praying hard about the best use of this land and are about to launch into a major new and exciting conservation project funded by Natural England. The main habitat we manage at Hilfield is species-rich grassland. There's one field which has belonged to the Friary since its foundation in the 1920s, the camping field. This has not been commercially farmed in that time and so has been spared from the Green Revolution with its fertilisers and pesticides. The only management it's received for many years was cutting and removing the grass in late summer to provide a space for the family campers' tents for a week. Fortuitously, this is exactly the right management for a traditional hay meadow, so many of the associated species have flourished. Since 2006, we've been more mindful of our conservation objectives and the flora has responded well. It's now home to a profusion of wildflowers, including no less than 9 species of orchid. This amazing meadow has inspired us to create more of this precious habitat. It's also provided an invaluable source of donor material in the form of seed-rich green hay for recreating many acres of new wildflower meadow. Starting in 2007 with the field next door. Now 13 years down the line and this restoration site is really starting to look good. It's still not as diverse as the camping field, but it's just as floriferous and full of insects. We've continued this restoration on the recently acquired land, setting aside another 10 acres to be managed as traditional hay meadows, and starting the long process of restoring biodiversity. The main challenge we face here is the increased fertility of the soil from the years of intensive farming. This favours the tough grass species at the expense of finer grasses and flowering plants. Cutting and removing the hay each year will slowly help to address this, but it will take time. We've introduced some diversity by spreading green hay from the camping field, but putting seed out is not a magic bullet. You need to get the soil right first. This will be a long-term effort, but we are already starting to see some results, with a surprising amount of bird's foot trefoil, along with common blue butterflies, pyramidal orchids, and many others popping up in one of the fields already. The other essential tool in our management of the wildflower meadows are the Friary's livestock. We keep both Shetland cattle and Poll Dorset sheep. The Shetland cattle are perfect for conservation grazing, as they graze in a non-selective and patchy way, creating many niches in one meadow. They are hardy and do very well on the lower carbohydrate fodder produced from the meadows. They are a rare breed, classed as vulnerable by the Rare Breed Survival Trust, so they are well worth conserving in their own right. Sheep are sometimes seen as less compatible with conservation grazing because they graze selectively and crop the sward tightly, both things which favour the grass over the flowers. We've selected Poll Dorset sheep to help us overcome this, as they are able to lamb out of season. The lambs here are born in late summer after the hay's been cut. At this point we want to graze the meadows as hard as possible to reduce the vigour of the grass as it regrows, so any extra sheepy mouths are very welcome. From spring through summer, we have to keep the sheep off of the meadows or they'll eat the flowers, so we have much less grazing available to them. The aim is that by this point the lambs are big enough to go into the friary freezers, balancing the numbers of sheep with the grazing we want them to do. The meat from the friary's livestock is all butchered and used in-house. This is important to us, as it helps to keep us connected to the realities and relationships we have with our animals, and all of the complex ethical and emotional issues that go with that. A number of springs surface around the friary, giving rise to another significant habitat we manage, wet woodland. Tall alders and twisted willows stand over a range of sedge species and saxifrages and are home to many uncommon and endemic species, including Bechstein's bat, spotted and pied flycatchers, marsh tits, and many different types of lichen. As with the meadows, we have a number of wet woodlands at different stages of their journey. We're just about to launch into an exciting restoration project on one of them, Hermitswood, which has great potential but has deep drainage ditches we need to block up to make it wetter, and plantation trees we need to remove, allowing more light in. We will also be radio tracking the local Bechstein's bat population to understand how they're using the area and the impact our work is having on them, which will be amazing. The shadow of ash dieback looms large at Hilfield. Most of our woodland contains a significant proportion of ash, and we are already seeing signs of this disease. But this is not necessarily a complete disaster. It will, of course, impact those species dependent on ash, but it will also provide many opportunities for other species in the wake of a large disturbance episode. One way we are responding to this is by opening up some of our ash-dominated plantation woodland, which is frankly of very low conservation merit, to create new areas of wood pasture. This is one of Europe's most threatened habitats and potentially one of the most diverse, with its mosaic of different features all mixed up together: scrub, scattered trees, denser areas and open grassland, providing a wide range of niches in close proximity. We'll be planting up our largest field, which is part of the recently acquired land, as an area of new wood pasture, with around 500 trees going in to create a further 15 acres. This will help build climate resilience into our pastures, with the trees providing shade and water uptake, helping to flatten the weather extremes we may all soon face. These habitats start to reach maturity in a couple of 100 years, when they're home to decaying ancient trees, but we have to start somewhere. It's the same with traditional orchards. The Friary has some fragmented remnants of beautiful old trees dripping with lichen. Some are already beginning to die and decay, and we want to ensure habitat continuity now. So next year we'll be planting a further 30 trees. They'll all be local cultivars, ensuring the survival of their unique genetics, as well as providing food and homes for a host of wildlife. One of the most exciting upshots from our acquisition of the extra land is how it has connected neighbours with shared conservation interests, like the missing piece of a jigsaw. This has stimulated us to form a local conservation cluster. Here, neighbours offer encouragement, advice and practical support to one another, developing a landscape-scale approach to conservation, allowing habitat connectivity and integrated management across a wide area. Among other things, we've worked together to harvest and spread green hay from the Friary's meadows, creating even more of this fantastic resource on neighbours' land. And we're managing scrub along a large area of woodland edge to protect and connect 2 colonies of Duke of Burgundy butterflies at either end of the cluster. The ability to work together like this magnifies our efforts far beyond the sum of us all working individually. And this has very much been my experience of being part of the Partners in Action network. Hilfield's been involved since it started, and I've very much valued the opportunities to share ideas and experiences with other land managers, to be able to ask for help and advice, or to offer training opportunities to staff and volunteers. It's been very encouraging and empowering to feel part of a wider movement engaged in collective care for creation, whether that's focused around the Target 10, or praying for each other, or just sharing concerns and resources. And I'm very excited to see how things develop in the future.